安信。陕西安信显像管循环处理应用有限公司成立于2010年，是国内最早专业从事电子废弃物无害化处置及资源化利用的企业之一。公司目前涉及家电拆解物、含汞废物无害化处置、含贵重金属固体废物资源化利用及其他微废处置等领域。陕西安信。
广西环保产业投资集团于2019年5月30日揭牌成立，作为自治区人民政府批准成立的生态环境领域国有省级平台公司，构建供水一张网、污水处理一盘棋，成功打造县域环保产业一体化政企合作标杆的上司模式，整建制水务资产并购的千州模式，在供水领域已形成具有较强影响力的环投品牌。
斯坦德集团是一家以生物医药及生命科学领域为核心，深耕生态环境、综合贸易、创新服务等专业领域的综合型高科技服务企业。斯坦德生态环境作为斯坦德旗下综合型环境服务平台，致力于为客户提供环境监测检测、环保咨询、环境治理、绿色低碳、环境损害司法鉴定、一站式管家服务。斯坦德生态环境固废实验室是国内最早开展固废检测与微废鉴别的重点实验室之一。2022年，斯坦德环境成功取得环境损害司法鉴定资质。斯坦德生态环境以提供公正可信的监测数据报告、监督改善生态环境质量为核心，深入配合打好污染防治攻坚战，打好蓝天、地水、净土保卫战。
湖州成泰福素环保再生有限公司是一家专业从事聚四氟乙烯相关制品的回收分类、加工利用、产品销售为一体的综合性服务企业。公司拥有自己的专业技术团队，从事 PTFE 行业10余年，具有较强的研发能力、完善的检测手段及先进的实验设备，成功建设了一条回收利用 PTFE 除尘氯废带和 PTFE 沾油边角料的处理生产线。
This is a film about plastic pollution. Actually, it's about solutions. Upstream innovation offers solutions to design out packaging waste. Ask yourself, do we need this or not? Sure, you can't always just eliminate the packaging. So rethink the product or rethink the packaging. Cucumbers need plastic to stay fresh, right? Wrong. You know what's really cool? Spray them with an edible spray instead. Reuse is another great solution to design out waste. You can reuse this bottle to make your own cleaning product, like that. And don't buy single-use bottles with bubbly water if you can add bubbles to your tap water. And should all these single-use bottles be different, or can they share one reusable design? Now, if eliminating the packaging doesn't work and reusing things doesn't work, then at least the materials should stay at work. So when we start to design a product or packaging, maybe we shouldn't do it from many materials, but from a single material and a single colour, or no colour. And that is just one example. So if you're looking for packaging solutions, read this guide. Get your copy, because this film will eliminate in 3, 2...
陕西安信坚持规范与创新并重的发展理念，最大限度地降低危险废物对环境造成的污染，提高危险废物的资源化利用水平，使公司成为一家让公众和政府放心的危废处置企业。征途漫漫，砥砺前行。陕西安信。陕西安信显像管循环处理应用有限公司成立于2010年，是国内最早专业从事电子废弃物无害化处置及资源化利用的企业之一。公司目前涉及家电拆解物、含汞废物无害化处置、含贵重金属固体废物资源化利用及其他危废处置等领域。陕西安信。
广西环保产业投资集团于2019年5月30日揭牌成立。作为自治区人民政府批准成立的生态环境领域国有省级平台公司，构建供水一张网、污水处理一盘棋，成功打造县域环保产业一体化政企合作标杆的上司模式，整建制水务资产并购的千州模式，在供水领域已形成具有较强影响力的环投品牌。
斯坦德集团是一家以生物医药及生命科学领域为核心，深耕生态环境、综合贸易、创新服务等专业领域的综合型高科技服务企业。斯坦德生态环境作为斯坦德旗下综合型环境服务平台，致力于为客户提供环境监测检测、环保咨询、环境治理、绿色低碳、环境损害司法鉴定、一站式管家服务。斯坦德生态环境固废实验室是国内最早开展固废检测与危废鉴别的重点实验室之一。2022年，斯坦德环境成功取得环境损害司法鉴定资质。斯坦德生态环境以提供公正可信的监测数据报告、监督改善生态环境质量为核心，深入配合打好污染防治攻坚战，打好蓝天、碧水、净土保卫战。
尊敬的与会嘉宾，专家
Distinguished guests, dear experts, scholars, good morning. Welcome to this ICWMT. I'm Chen Yang. I come from the Hainan Institute of the China Academy of Sciences University. The morning session, we are going to talk about the domestic waste classified treatment. We are going to talk about how do we effectively promote sustainable development. And the treatment and disposal issue in China has become an important issue in China. With the increasing of population in China, the household waste continue to increase, posing a pressure to the environment. In order to solve this problem, governments and institutions are making practices to solve this issue. And we also refer to the advanced experience from at home and abroad, and also related technology, providing support for the classified treatment of domestic waste. Today, we are very fortunate to have invited 8 speakers from at home and abroad who will talk about their experiences and practices. And we're also going to have formal communication with each other to solve the domestic waste problems and support and learn from each other. We hope that we can also provide a domestic academic changing platforms so that we can learn from each other and provide opportunity for the sustainable development and ecological development. We have invited a lot of important speakers. Today, we would like to invite the first speaker from the Institute of Solid Waste Control and Recycling School of Environment, Tsinghua University. His topic is Professor Liu Jianguo. His research direction is domestic waste classified treatment and solid waste researches and technology, and hazardous waste new technology, and so on. He has hosted important research programs, 863 programs, and so on. He has undertaken the research programs from the Ministry of Housing and Development. He is also the member of the Environmental Sanitation Standardization Committee and China Environmental Protection Equipment Industry. And also, he is the core members of these various committees. Now let's give him a big welcome. Okay, good morning. I'm very honored to gather here in Sanya and to talk about our domestic waste classified treatment. Because of the limitation of time, I will not talk about the background. We will move on to the main theme. Today, I'm going to talk about our industry policy analysis and future forecasting. And why do we talk about our policy analysis? Because environmental protection industries actually is policy-oriented, policy-driven. And waste management is even more so. Without policy support and guidance, it will be very difficult for us to achieve industrialization. So today, I would like to speak from our policy perspective. So first of all, from the perspective of the policies, it has a very important position, and it's been integrated into our science and technology development. From the 19th to the 20th CPC National Congress, there are a lot of content, including our from the 19th to the 20th CPC Congress, we have very important conferences. And we can see that we are also publicizing the waste management, waste classification nationwide. It is very important for us. And also it is very important for our modernization of the governance and also the economic development. So it's being integrated into our economic and society development. And our positions has become an important grasp of our civilization. In the morning, we also talked about the guidance of the waste classification. Mayor from the Shanghai also raised a high requirement for all of us. Generally speaking, the improvement of the environment relies on the waste classification, and we are moving to another level. And it is also a significant and important and significant step for all of us. from our governance to our development. So as we can see that more importantly, waste classification has become an important carrier for the civilization. So as you can see, that is the importance of waste classification. We needed to think out of the box. Waste classification is an important stage of the waste disposal and treatment. And we needed to see from that angle. And its significance is more than our waste disposal itself. At the same time, we need to begin from our laws and regulations. And in 2020, in September the 1st, solid waste law has clarified the mechanism for the waste classified treatment and also has clarified the principles of waste disposal. So waste classification has become our legal obligation. And after we have clarified this obligation, compared with our other laws and regulations, our packaging and our wastes, and in our clean production promotion law, cycle economy promotion law, and solid waste, environmental prevention and control law, and anti-food waste law, they are all clarified in these various laws and regulations. And on our national level, that's the same. And more than half of our provinces and our government has already released various laws and regulations about waste classification. And as early as 2020, all these goals have been completed. And we are moving toward 297 prefectural level to clarify the waste classification work. At the same time, our waste disposal, this is not a single disposal. It's also related to our major actions and rules and regulations. And we have already formed a series of measures to tackle waste classification problem. For example, by the end of 2016, the Central Leading Group of Conference for the Financial and Economic Affairs meeting, they proposed the universal implementation of a garbage sorting system. And the State Office issued the implementation plan of extended procedural responsibility system. And also, after that, the State Council also released various documents on that. And also, they have released various measures, including the strengthening the control of plastic pollution, several opinions on further promoting and classified of household garbages and wastes, and also notice on further strengthening the control of excessive packaging of commodities. A series of policies and measures promoted waste classification work and reduced the difficulties of the waste classification. And of course, there are also various governments and institutions who have released waste classification methods. And one of the prominent characteristics is that various documents are released by multi-government, by multi-departments. Some of the documents are released by multiple governments, by multiple departments. That also signify the importance of our waste classification. And this is also our systematic measures. And for the various cities and for the various governments, they also have developed their own strategies. By 2020, we are going to establish our waste sorting and disposal systems, including the household waste sorting and treatment systems. And it will also be highly related to our our local development situation. And under such a situation, we also needed to promote waste classification. We needed to have scientific management. And just yesterday, in the letter from the President Xi, we can see that he also stressed the importance of waste classification. We needed to know about the waste amount and waste classification. Actually, for a lot of places, they do not know well about it. And before the waste enters the waste disposal facilities, sometimes we needed to know about all these different links that they surround.
So there might be a variance in the quantity and quality of production of waste. Currently, the waste is separated into 4 categories, but it's not absolute. If we want to scientifically manage the waste, we will have to look at the quantity. We don't have to give a clear-cut standard, because in that way, this might not be the best approach. This might not be economic. That is to say, when we have different types and categories of waste, there should be different methods for processing. We've been updating and following up. There's some general guidance which is better clarified, but we still have to update it. It's the same with recyclables. Some of them come in bulk, some in small quantities. When we have the technology, we have to tell what we should do with different types and categories of waste. We should come up with a quantified standard so that throughout the process, we have good control. Of course, we should also look at other types of waste. After we have identified kitchen waste and recyclables, the components in other waste will also change. So we have to make adjustments on the burning facility. For example, the use of fly ash and the process that we have with residue from the furnace. All of these need to be better and more scientifically managed in order to arrive at more accurate identification and classification of recycling so that we can decarbonize and optimize the efficiency. Classification should be accurate and supervision should be intelligent. If we can realize the goals that we have specified here, we will be able to increase the rate of recycling to 45% and resource utilization rate to 80%, which will make us the lead in the world. The data is still solid. Our concern is kitchen waste, which will be the topic of Professor Wei's report later. As for kitchen waste, we need to have an orderly approach. That's to say, we have to be rational. We have to take into account current circumstances and the conditions we have. The technology and techniques adopted should be based on the product so that it will be accepted when it's processed. Mostly, most kitchen waste is processed in a concentrated facility. We'll have to assess, diagnose before changing the technology. If the facility is newly built, we will have to look into the entire life cycle to choose the best approach. We can use anaerobic and aerobic approaches, whether it's wet anaerobic method or dry anaerobic method. Should it be coordinated or centralized? Should it be scattered? Well, all of these should be considered in order to come up with a synergized approach that can deal with different types of kitchen waste so that the product can be recycled and we can optimize the use of the mass. So we want to have low pollution and high efficiency. In the past, we used to talk about waste classification as based on standard. But now we need to have more foresight. We need to approach it from its source at prevention. For example, we can have the control of residue from supermarkets and restaurants. We may donate the leftover, or if humans cannot eat up the food, we can donate the residue to animals as food and feed. Of course, if we use leftover to make fod and feed, this will maintain the nutrients. What's left from there can be recycled for oil, the production of methane, and it can be used as fertilizer. And later there can be recovery and disposal. Overall, there is a tiered framework to deal with kitchen waste. However, we need to be specific. What part of kitchen waste can be processed with prevention? What should be dealt with donation? And what should be recycled? Only in this way, when we have a guidance, can we lead the recycling of waste. But first, we need to think about the source. How much can we reduce? Last year, during the pandemic, we've been doing research and we've been working on this. Restaurants, food delivery, cafeteria, at units and at schools, also household. These are the 4 scenarios that we studied. How much food is wasted? Well, in fact, the waste is just 50% of all kitchen waste, which is to say, not all the kitchen waste is wasted. Food waste is not kitchen waste. And the reports on food waste in China can be exaggerated, which is why we should better define kitchen waste and leftover. We're also working with partners to donate leftovers. There have been guidance to benefit companies such as Walmart, who have the incentive and capacity to donate their leftover or food closing expiry date. We can also use scatter donation as a small circuit for recycling. These are important ways to modernize the management of kitchen waste. But these are specific use cases. The majority of kitchen waste is still generated in everyday life, which is why we should control and classify the source of kitchen waste. It's not to say that all of the kitchen waste should be classified. There's a turning point. For big cities like Shenzhen and Beijing, we have conducted specific analysis, which is to say, when the separation rate reaches 25%, we should apply the system, because after this point, there will be negative impact on economic and environmental impact. Which is why we should optimize the system. We have to deal with kitchen waste in a certain technological approach. So we have a comprehensive assessment throughout the life cycle. There can be different approaches of composite, some of them anaerobic, some of them aerobic. And there's wet and dry anaerobic approaches. But most of it can be used for composite as fertilizer. But overall, I'm very happy with the result. Still, we're able to maintain the carbon and nutrients from kitchen waste. We're still promoting it. There's negative environmental impact, which is a concern. Let's compare filling compared with compost. In a landfilling factory, the biogas can be recycled. That is to say, across the chain, there's still problem. So we have to break down the issue, because pollution happens in different nodes. So we have to control it in a more granular approach. This is an issue. When we deal with kitchen waste, there's compost. So we have to adopt a diversified approach. the aim of dealing with kitchen waste in Germany is that it has to go back to the land and the soil, which is also a good approach. You can see there are different types of kitchen waste and how it's used for land. Germany started with identification of waste in 1907. Before World War I, they've been working on it for over a century, but still the separation rate is at 20% or so. It's not because they do not want to improve, but because that's just the result. When separation rate is around 20%, it makes the best sense in economics. So that's the result of a rational choice, which is why we should also be reasonable when we are separating kitchen waste. In the front end, as we can see, collection of waste and garbage is still scattered. It's disorderly, so there's a gap. We can transform the system in the front end. If we can better analyze the process, we will see that recyclables can contribute greatly to decarbonization and pollution reduction in waste. When waste identification reaches a certain stage, we need to further reduce the pollution and improve the efficiency in waste disposal, which is to say, in the next stage, we'll have to focus on standardization of recyclable processing.
现在呢，符合我们时代特征的这样的一个产业。过去其实最大为什么会是那样的一个特点呢？就是因为
So why did we have such a characteristic? Because there was an unreasonable balance of the waste classification. We actually spend a lot of energy on the recycling of the waste acquisition. So for our product sales, it actually depends itself on the market, and we can only reduce the input of the facilities. So our management measures is very similar to the 1980s, 1990s. In the future, we need to further improve our mechanism. We needed to have EPR capital and also the government subsidies. Once we have waste acquisition, multiple sources of our income, then waste acquisition will be eliminated in the future. And then when we have the capital, we are going to put in more resources in the quality, facilities, environmental protection, and the talents. Without any capital, our industry cannot survive. And it will be impossible for us to realize the modernization. If we do not have such a waste classification, we cannot realize our industry development, and then this industry will not be there anymore. That's why we needed to sort out the relationship between the waste classification and the waste acquisition, so that we can ensure the high quality development of this industry. For example, PET recycling. For example, PET bottle recycling rate is about 94%. But such a kind of recycling has led to the great cycle of our development. It means that we are move on to the lower and lower chain of the resource and the waste classification and recycling end. If we have a new mechanism, we can realize high quality recycling of the domestic waste so that we can improve our quality and realize high quality development. And about our packaging for the delivery products, we also needed to have a different kind of management for the delivery packages and delivery boxes. We should propose such a kind of new management method, which is called the cash pledge method, so that it can also contribute to our waste reduction and carbon reduction. And of course, if such a kind of mechanism can be promoted nationwide, now we are faced with the capital pressure from the government. We needed the enterprises to undertake more and more responsibilities. For example, so the pledges and so the responsibilities and so the payment for the residents, the government's financial pressure will also be relieved. Otherwise, the waste classification of recycling can only become an expensive pressure from the government. Only those with means can recycle domestic waste. And for other waste, I believe that we also need to promote incineration. And we also have new technologies. We need to explore these new technologies. Of course, otherwise our fossil fuels pollution will be higher, and the measures for the carbon reduction cannot play its role. We also needed to explore other measures like incineration and quicken the sound and development of waste incineration. And fly ash disposal is also another thing that needs breakthrough. And there are also technology directions. For example, the dioxin decomposition, heavy metal separation, recovery, safe landfill disposal, and geological disposal, and high-value resources recovery, standardized use of building materials. All these technologies have been used by other countries. We have also done the separation of the flue gas purification to further reduce critical central emission for the dioxins. And developed countries are actually doing this. For our country till 2050, what should we do? And we also predicted such a emission potential. And also there are other measures like fly ash, low wind. It should be also utilized. All these measures might be in line with our environmental protection concepts. I believe that in the future, fly ash discharge and utilization, I think there will be more and work to do in the future. Of course, we also needed to explore counties and villages waste burning models. And if it is small, it will not be economic, and its cost will be higher than that of the big facilities. It will be hard for us to control. We also needed to carry out investigations. And for our industries, it is also a opportunity for all of us. In the future, we also needed to carry out more supervision and management on the waste recycling and classification. For a lot of waste disposal measures, sometimes the cost is very high and they cannot recover their profits. So it will be their problem. And with the development of waste disposal, other waste disposal measures also needs to be upgraded. And we also need to provide other resources for other facilities. And we also needed to further promote our development in the future. And a good waste we can produce RDF. And in the future, it is also relating to our development. So I believe that we still have a long way to go. And we also needed to move toward other zero emission carbon reduction measures. We also needed to adjust our measures to solve all these problems. Landfills has its own values. We needed to reduce the carbon emission in our industry. We also needed to further explore the measures to reduce the carbon reduction. For the landfills, actually, it is a guarantee. It is a bottom line for us. A city needs its landfill measures. Otherwise, it will face high risks. We also needed to take advantage of a new generation of information. And we also have advantages for the waste classification. This is actually a refined development. We hope that we can realize high-quality development of the waste classification and recycling. And for the developed regions, waste classification is creating benefits. And our efficiencies can be improved. And it is actually a complex situation. And also green waters and mountains are the mountains of silver and gold. And how do we realize this goal? And at the end of the day, we need to maintain the sustainable development of our industry, and our practitioners, especially for the practitioners, we needed to improve our reasonable income. Sometimes the practitioners, like in the environmental protection industry, there are a lot of retired workers. It is not in line with our sustainable development. And our industry ranks the last two in our industry. And how can we attract more talents in our industry? So with the classification, we also needed to improve our industry's image so that our leaders can attach more importance to this industry. And we can also improve our revenue. So in this regard, once we have such a waste classification, we can also improve our income. So at the end of the day, I believe that so the waste classification and it is very important for us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your speech. He's actually the first speech in the morning, even though it exceeded the limit, but he has a very rich content. I believe that he's going to help all of you. And also, we needed to break the barrier of the waste classification. Next, we're going to invite the Institute of Environmental Pollution Control, Zhejiang University, Professor Wu Weixiang. So he has done a lot of things in the environmental pollution control and recycling of urban domestic waste. He has hosted 863 program and also science and researchers. And he also has made a lot of researches in organic waste control. And also he has won about 11 programs and also has released a lot of papers. Thank you very much. Let's give him a warm welcome. Thank you very much. I also would like to thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. Today, we're going to share our understanding of our technical barriers to the classified reduction of cycling urban domestic waste, and also how do we break the technology barriers of the recycling of urban domestic waste. And this is the thing that our leaders are paying attention to. So President Xi returned a letter to the Shanghai Jiaxin Street. He also applauded their waste classification work. From the domestic waste classification perspective, it is also important content for us to realize our goal of the dual carbon and also during the 12th and 13th five-year plan, they also clarified the urban and domestic waste classification in China.
Classification has to be applied in all the processes in the disposal of garbage, from the collection to treatment. I think there are challenges in all stages. First, in collection, we have a lot of volunteers to be on guard besides the bin to make sure that garbage is thrown in the right one. This is in Hangzhou. In different districts, what if there's no volunteer to monitor the disposal of garbage? Well, most people would throw the garbage in a disorganized way. They wouldn't put it in the right bin. That's to say, we have to think about how do we properly dispose of the garbage, put them into the right bin, even when no one is around. I think this depends on smart technology. We can collect the image, which will be monitored. We're working with a company in Zhejiang, which can recognize human faces. It's 85% accurate for face recognition and 87% accurate for AI image recognition. And the energy cost is low. That's to say, it will replace the volunteers to improve the quality of garbage throwing. Second, on classified collection, kitchen waste is now collected and it contains a lot of water. The water retention rate is 55 to 60%. However, when we separate kitchen waste from other mixture, the water ratio will be 70 or even 80%. That means microbials will be there to rot, and there will be bad smell. In order to deal with that, we have sent people to open the garbage bag so that we can reduce the bad smell. The bad smell is an important complaint from residents. And we are working on VOC. In both the throwing point and the concentrated disposal point, we have analyzed the components of VOC. After classification, the concentration of VOC has surged. At the disposal point, in both the VOC and the concentration of other hazardous bad smell, there is a high concentration. It's even carcinogen. Third is transportation. We're building a lot of connection and transfer devices, but still mostly we emphasize on compression. And there's not enough control on the disposal of wastewater. It's not intelligent enough. How do we better classify general waste and decarbonize? Well, there's room for improvement. I would advise to follow the 4 categorization method. This is a guidance and general rule from the Zhejiang province. During the 14th five-year plan, 1,573 garbage portal need to be upgraded. The emphasis is still on a closed-loop management to reduce the noise and bad smell. And we want the disposal station to be smart. Some of the stations have received up to 600 or 700 million yuan, but still there's room for improvement in compliance with the 4 methods. The transfer of kitchen waste, the reduction of bad smell, and the conversion into resources have room for improvement. And we can also educate residents. Managers can also utilize digital technology to better manage the classification of the garbage in order to reduce carbon emission and pollution. The 4th challenge is on conversion of kitchen waste into resources. That is the focus of my work. So we'll focus on shortcomings in kitchen waste disposal. 40 to 60% of general waste is kitchen waste. There are 3 categories: leftover, fresh produce, and kitchen leftover. Mostly we either use biogas, compost, or insect conversion. But across the chain, we have done well enough. In primary phases, for example, the throwing and classification of garbage. But in the back end, let's look at the Yangtze River Delta. Sorry, the Changjiang River Delta. Around 2020, the total disposal capacity of kitchen waste is less than 5% if we look at the capacity of equipment. So there's a huge challenge and pain point. Of course, there is technical bottleneck because there's a lot of mixture and different elements in the raw material. It will reduce the efficiency of compost. As for wastewater treatment and waste residue, there's no efficient solution. I've worked on a kitchen waste disposal facility in Zhejiang. I studied it for over 200 days, from the extraction of oil until the production of compost. If we deduct the cost of incineration and other costs, the total revenue is less than 750 yuan, which means the revenue rate is really low. That's to say, I don't think it's efficient. It's not converting organic waste into resource. If there's not enough profit, companies are not incentivized to better convert kitchen waste. As I said, kitchen waste disposal is still mostly about incineration. At the production of biogas, there is a lot of solid residue. 25 to 40% of residue is in solid form in kitchen waste. And we need deeper processing. What's the difference from biogas and incineration? There's not much difference in the status quo. That's to say, I think there's room for improvement. In Zhejiang, we've done a lot in policy. The amount of garbage collection is an important factor. How much garbage is collected into the processing facility? This should be the focus, which is why the government body in Zhejiang province has advised that we should check the project on its resource utilization rate, its production level, environment level, economic viability, and management level. These are the 5 factors to take into consideration. This is the guidance to evaluate garbage and waste utilization facilities in Zhejiang. There are currently 63 such facilities in Zhejiang, but there's still a gap to produce 6,000 tons of waste in addition every day. We need to contribute to technology in the industry. What about anaerobic biogas production? Well, pre-treatment is an issue. How much biomass can be collected in pre-treatment? How much will proceed into the production tank? If you look at the entire process, be it leftover kitchen waste, when we filter it, most of the kitchen waste and general waste will be taken away. What goes into the anaerobic biogas production tank is mostly liquid. So most biomass resources have been wasted. The separation of garbage and waste should be more reasonable so as to keep more of the biomass. This is the literature. There's not much attention on pre-treatment. Probably that's to fit research with industrial need. But on the other hand, we've been doing a lot in anaerobic biogas production. Previously, yesterday in the Young Scientist Forum, I've seen a lot of work. Fiber, semi-fiber that's left over from the anaerobic biogas production should have better rate of conversion. We should yield practical results instead of aiming at issuing more paper on SCI journals. Of course, we have developed equipment and technology to control the loss of biomass to around 15%. And energy cost is around 8.5 kilowatt hours per ton of waste. And the purity of product is the 99% and over. In this chart, it's a typical engineering process. As we can see, the gas production rate is still low. Very few companies reach 2.5 in volumetric gas yield. So if we convert it to the raw material, gas yield is only 50 to 60 metric tons per ton of garbage. But in fact, biogas has more potential in biomass conversion. We can better exploit the resources in them. The volumetric gas yield in other countries is higher because they have a higher temperature in processing. But over 90% of biogas production facilities in China use a moderate temperature. The efficiency is high, but because there's a difference in the detergent in the mediation product used, there's a difference in efficiency. How do we adjust to the right temperature? We are exploring that. We think the best temperature is around 43 to 45 Celsius degrees so that there can be better coordination. We have been making progress and we might share the results with you next time.
But how do we improve our transformation efficiency? That's also a problem. And let's see. How can we improve our transformation process? We are also cooperating with the Hainan group. And we hope that we can improve the methane production by about 12%, significantly improving the efficiency of anaerobic bulk production. And about our transformation, we are also faced with low efficiency and high costs, and we also need the government subsidies. And the reason is a lack of standards. And we are also carried out economic research analysis of the aerobic compost and protein conversion. For the protein conversion, we have the auxiliary materials and wastewater treatment subsidies. And the compost composes. It actually basically there is no subsidy. And the kitchen waste, we only have a very small amount of government subsidy. I believe in the future we are going to have more focus on the protein conversion and aerobic compost because it can improve our technology transfer. We are also improving our relative standards on the technical specification for the fertilizer utilization of perishable waste. I hope that you can all give us your suggestions. In Zhejiang, we are facing very simple solution. So we are actually take the lead in opening up the last kilometer of kitchen waste perishable recycling. For the household waste, actually there is a very low salt content. Actually, we do not have carried out, we haven't carried out investigation for the household waste salt content. Once it enters our agriculture chain, we have carried out a series of utilization of measures of perishable waste. That's why Zhejiang province will take lead in opening up the last kilometer of kitchen waste. And we're also facing problems for the aerobic compost. It has a long time of perishable time, and it also occupies a large area. It is actually 2 to 4 times of our anaerobic marsh project. And the vast majority of anaerobic composts is actually horizontal, but the anaerobic is vertical. We're also facing other problems like machine composting products are poor quality and low rot. And we also needed to test the rot ratio of this technology. It's like a dried waste, but it is not a compost. And from our agricultural department, 525 standard, there is no technology requirement about this microbiological technology. We need 1 to 2 days to improve the water content of 50 to 60%, and then it will enter the fermentation process. And for this series of technology, we are also taking advantage of this biological drying and purifying technology, and our energy consumption reduced by 30%, and our footprint also reduced by 30%. And now this project is also being established in Shangyu. And we are also establishing a center of the waste recycling facility. And we welcome all of you to visit here. And for the protein conversion, as we know, it can generate dried worms, fresh worms, and bioprotein to utilize these resources. But the difficulty lies in the conversion rate. How can we realize the effective protein conversion? For example, there is a problem of the bacteria enzyme incorporated pre-fermentation technology. So we needed to pre-treat the fermentation technology to improve its conversion rate. And for our automatic conversion, there is also another problem. There is low level of mechanization and automation of biological protein transformation. So we cooperated with Lin Kun. This is a biological development company. We are developing a demonstration project. I actually think that it is an important method for us to realize automatic conversion and also automatic feeding process. And the conversion rate is improved from 35% to 45%, and the separation rate of inside body was more than 96%. The yield of fresh gadfly per unit of waste increased from 10% to 15%, and labor cost per unit of yield decreased by more than 60%. And we're also facing a problem of secondary pollution, like in the recycling process of kitchen waste. Usually, we use the leachate like conventional treatment process. Of course, it has its advantages. And it can generate a concentrated solution. And in the GB 16889/2022 draft was consultation, no landfill refills for the concentration solution. So we can have a membrane concentrate outlet or evaporation or advanced oxidation recharging. But we have developed a new type of non-beam processing technology. We call it SFA04. So the micro-oxygen aeration and the synchronous nitrogen and the carbon removal treatment technology. So this system, we can realize CO4 lower than 100, COD or lower than 100, and we can realize this goal. And for about for our low level of stench pollution control in the factory boundary, there is also another problem, which is stench problem. The problems exist in a lot of plants, so our supervision and compared with various opinions from the government, is about 20 times of the standard of the stench. So under this situation, because the complex composition of the stench, actually we use various methods like alkaline and acids. It will be very hard for us to eliminate other elements. So we needed to carry out researches of the content of the stench. And we also have carried out a series of research of the stench of aerobic compost anaerobic marshes. And we hope that we can have a targeted treatment and recognition treatment of all these stenches. And we have developed such a picoline plus absorption and desorption type, low temperature plasma alkaline washing oxidation compound deoxidization. So this technology can effectively reduce the odor concentration by over 95%. Removal efficiency of low temperature plasma VOC was more than 90%. Anomia removal is 100%. And we hope that in the future, our future urban household waste recycling system, once we break through the technology bottlenecks, in the future, we needed to move on to a zero waste system. It also has its own barriers. And the intelligent supervision network need also to be combined with our supervision network. I also would like to give you an advertisement. In Hangzhou, I'm going to hold a meeting about the perishable waste resource utilization seminar in Hangzhou. We're going to invite our friends, our colleagues, experts to promote the recycling of urban perishable wastes. We're going to promote the application and development. Thank you. Thank you very much for your speech. From his speech, we can see that domestic waste classification is a key in our development. And Professor Wu's team also has generated a lot of research results. Next, I would like to invite Professor Duo Lian from the Research Center of College of Life Sciences, Tianjin University, has been engaged in the municipal solid waste compost pollution and its application and ground cover greening system in a lot of major programs in China. He has served important posts like with Cycling Economy Committee and so on. Let's welcome Professor Duo. Thank you very much for your introduction. I also would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me. Now is the time where I end. So today I would like to be very quick and exchange ideas with all of you. From the topic's perspective,
why do I choose this topic? Well, it's based on the requirement of ecological city. We tend to talk about zero waste cities, but that's just part of it. Another important thing is a city needs to have lawns. It should have green areas to make people have a good living environment, and the UN benchmark is 20 square meters per person. The lawn has important ecological and social functions. First, lawns can absorb carbon dioxide. It can absorb a lot of carbon dioxide. 1 square meter of lawn can absorb around 600 grams of carbon dioxide every day, and at the same time release oxygen. It can also reduce urban atmospheric humidity and heat. The lawn can release a lot more oxygen than other trees. The lawn can release much more oxygen than trees, around 20 times the oxygen release amount of trees. And the lawns will grow back again after you've trimmed it. it can grow back 20 times within a year. The lawn can also adjust the moisture. In New Zealand, my personal feeling is that there's no dirt because the lawn will keep the dirt. It's moisturized enough. And it can also retain water. The lawn is also a good space for entertainment and leisure. We can play around and have fun on the lawn. It's a place for sports. And the lawn is a good scenery. In the Western idea of city, lawn is a must. The lawn is about ecology, environment, landscape, sports, and leisure. The lawn serves multiple functions. That's why the construction of lawn is important and difficult. We need to maintain it and manage it properly. The cost is high. The lawn is a good landscape and part of the ecology. It cannot be replaced by a sculpture or any other city's attraction. When I was in New Zealand, there was a lot of lawn. A city of 100,000 population may have over 2 golf courses. And a city of over 100,000 population may have over 20 lawns that offer good space for sports and athletics. Some countries may have a lawn area on average of 70 square meters per person. But in China, that amount is 5 square meters per capita. Why? This is because city planning is outdated and the lawns take a lot of water to maintain. So there's big room for improvement in the future. Because the lawn industry is developing fast, there's research and widespread attention. There's room for lawn construction in China, but there are challenges. This is the current situation of lawn industry over the world. First, there are large areas for lawns, but there's still room for further expansion. As for China, the biggest issue is there's not enough construction material. Most lawns are constructed by grass roads. The roads are transferred to the city. But soil around the city is ruined or damaged because we need to get the raw and the surface level of the soil into the city. Around 20 centimeters of soil around the city is brought into the city as part of the grass row. Soil is a biomass produced after thousands or tens of thousands of years of natural processes. It's precious. If we take it into the city, it won't regenerate. If we use a piece of field to produce grass rows, the soil can no longer be used after 5 or 6 times of production. That is to say, we have to find an alternative. We may use compost. There can be an industry or a factory or a facility. We can create a lot of grass, just like how we produce vegetable. But to produce lawn is much more valuable than vegetable. 1 square of vegetable can sell for very little money, but the lawn can be sold at over 20 yuan per square meter, which is much more valuable than vegetables. This is a grass rows. And we also need to construct a net. The sod needs a lot of materials. There should be good thickness. The lawn row should be thick enough. In Tianjin and Beijing, there are over 1,000 producers of grass rows. It's a huge waste of land. Some of the field will be converted into a fish pond. Because lawns are expensive, but it comes at the cost of destruction of soil and field around the city. This is a shock to protection of soil and arable land in China. Let's also look at landfilling. There's limited amount of space. The landfill may take 20 to 50 minutes to drive around. It's huge. And it's full of stench. In fact, landfills are built on quality arable land. And there is technological weakness because there's no anti-filtration system. The pollution may spill over and damage the environment of residents around the landfill. What about compost? It's a good choice. There's been national fund on compost from 1998 or even 1997. Compost is ecologically viable because it's recycling of the mass. What's left over from production life should go back to nature. It's a full cycle of the ecological system. Because we're always producing waste and garbage, we need the mass to go around the ecological system. That's why compost is viable. What about incineration? It produces a lot of residues and gas. There's a lot of toxic substance. We might use a short-term monitoring means, but it's not enough. We need to monitor pollution for a long time. If we want to produce concrete, it will be used to build our house. If the raw material of concrete brick is from a polluted landfill, and the concrete brick becomes part of the house, what happens after 10 years, after 20 years? Will our children be affected by the harmful substance in it? Well, it's a concern. Some landfills are made into a city park. This is a park next to my residence unit. It's a mountain of garbage. The landfill pile or landfill hill is everywhere. There are around 200 or 300 such sites around Tianjin, and there's at least 600,000 tons of landfill stock. It's really hard to dispose of. And in the middle of the processing chain, nothing happens until at the back end, at the end of the production chain. What about a battery? I have waste battery at home. There's a complete case of it. One single battery can pollute 1 square meter of soil. It will be completely inarable once polluted by batteries. So it's a severe issue. What about compost? We need to recover the damage from heavy metal. But at the end of the processing chain, there's more work to be done. Turf grass is produced, but there are a lot of problems in the production. And I think turf grass can be combined with compost as solutions to complete the biomass recycling cycle. But we need to filter. We need a mechanism so that the turf grass produced from landfill sites can become part of the city. Of course, there should be harmless treatment. So what's the focus of our work? We need to specify the production mechanism of compost. We need to categorize general waste, split them into 3 categories so that utilization can be optimized. We should make it suffice the production of turf grass. There should be a balance of different elements, including nitrogen, hydrogen, potassium, etc.
它应用的一个什么营养的一个成分啊，它是不一样的啊，它是不一样的啊。那这样来讲，我们有针对性的来进行利用啊。那么这个是也是一个它的一个物理理化一些性质哈，包括持水啊、溶重啊。但是低颗粒的呢，可能它有一个溶水啊、持水的一个问题，有一些问题啊。但是通过机制的组配啊，那么重金属呢，我们通过不同的一个区域的这是2个区域的一个重金属。 我们发现呢，它是严重超标的，可以超出土壤10倍到什么100倍这样一个数量级，那么我们通过这个垃圾的一个堆肥的一个磷溶的一个实验表明，我们磷溶想一是通过修复，二是这个磷溶液我们进行什么工厂化的无土栽培来利用。就像那个工厂呢，我看那营养液直接一跑，那边蔬菜就长出来。我们想就立足一直做这样的工作。 那我们发现它的一个营养也是什么，蛮高于土壤的，这都是非常好的。那么这个是什么呢？就是磷溶液我们做的一个结果呢，不同磷溶液的比例，我们发现呢，它的效果确实是比土壤的要好的很多。我们也获得很多专利哈，很多专利。根系呢达到你抻不断。为什么说抻不断呢？草坪植物啊，就是你做一个草皮，那么你拿着一抻，它就断了。 那这个东西很难办，那没法进行利用了。装车的过程中就散了，所以说必须有很好的一个根系条件。那么同时我们还做了一个什么？用不同的一个组配，这里当然比如说主要有秸秆类的哈， 我们包括一些其他一些东西，我们主配的结果。之后呢，我们发现确实，你看它的一个相对基质的一个效应指数呢，还是蛮不错的，多的是接近一倍了哈，效果还是蛮不错的啊，蛮不错的。这也是哈这个不同草的一个堆肥的一个机制，包括用废弃物铺网。我们的那个商业铺网1平方米是很贵的，甚至原先是进口的，我们通过什么？也是废弃物。也是通过废弃物。那么你比如说像一些编织袋、建筑上的安全网等等哈，来进行去全方位的去利用这些东西啊，利用。刚才这整个的一个都达到了一个很好的一个效果，生长的一个周期，包括它的一个其他一些指标都是不错的哈。这是我们的一个过程，大家走一下时间问题啊。这是做光合指标测应，这是一个一哥的，这是我们经过堆肥提取一些微生物哈，提取一些强化的一些微生物，在抗旱呢。抗盐呢等，因为草坪需要水，抗旱的一个指标是非常重要的。还有一些比较盐碱滩等等哈，你比如说天津地区盐碱比较厉害，那是抗盐的问题很重要。我们筛选一些微生物哈，在这些抗性上做了一些工作啊，那么这都是一个我们的一些照片。那么这是最后呢形成一个什么？形成我们最终的终端产品。那么现在的问题来了，我们这个修复是怎么来修复的呢？我们快走一下啊。那么这个我们是通过一个什么生物的、化学的，是吧？物理的，包括一些农业的哈等等一些综合措施。那么主要就是什么呢？就是使这个堆肥啊能得到一个安全利用，同时这项技术也对土壤的修复也会能起到。
safe disposal of all these wastes.
那么我们看一下，这是一个堆肥重金属哈，堆肥重金属的一个。
And we also needed to further improve our heavy metals.
不同的一件是有明显不一样的啊，明显一个。我们通过这个可以进行什么？进行修复一下啊，进行修复一下。
And I think we also needed to further revise it. And we found out there is a problem, which is
草皮很难结成一个什么完整体系。那么这样来讲也会受到影响，所以我们针对这个呢也展开了一些工作，我们就不多说了啊。这是我们同时
And we also did something under the heavy metals condition. And we can extract a large amount of heavy metals, and it is very beneficial for us. At the same time, we also need to extract microorganisms. And what should we do? Because we have extract all these heavy metals, and then it's landfilled as microorganisms. Of course, it will not impact its photosynthetic response.
那么我们做一些化学修复剂哈，化学修复剂协同的情况下，我们发现一个什么问题呢？最后呢，
And what did we do? We needed to we also our remediation measures. Our attractive rate can amount to about 50%. At the same time, our grass grows at a very low rate. And our heavy metals can be extracted at a very fast rate. And we also can extract heavy metals through this process. Through our repairing additive, we also optimized our structure. And these are different pictures of the grass. As you can see, the heavy metals is extracted on the land, and it is very important.
这也是两茶草的，这我们是又选其他一种优化出一种化学修复剂啊，也是一个。
And these are also other kinds of remediation agents. So by taking advantage of the grass, we can use this method to restore the grass and also beautify the cities.
同时，我们又在其他植物一些筛选上，我们也做了一些工作啊，大家是吧？你看这是我们选的一种什么？一种。
And this is another method. So we chose. We chose this method. And we found out that all these heavy metals are attracted to the top of the grass. And as you can see, this is and this is a large type of grass, and we found out that the grass is very special. The heavy metals can be extracted to the top of the grass. And so this kind of base, the heavy metals can be extracted. And after that, we can use the grass. And we found out that there are rules behind the heavy metal extraction. And what is the mechanism behind the heavy metal extraction? It is very interesting. And we have also selected a lot of grasses. And these are the weeds. And we also selected high concentration weeds. As you can see, the heavy metal translocation is very high in these pictures. We have won about 168 patents. And we also have helped a lot of leading enterprises to be listed in the market. A company leader just said to me, we have saved profits for 30 million with this technology. And he also moved on this by using this technology. Just last year, they have won the Science and Technology Progress Award, second prize. Thank you all. Thank you very much, Professor Do. His goal is to improve the waste compost Now, we would like to invite Zhang Fushen. He is from the Ecological Environment Research Center of Chinese Academy of Sciences. He is going to talk about preparation of eco-remediation culture substrate from waste plastics. In the major projects, he also has a lot of things. He also has a lot of researchers. Now let's give him a warm welcome. Because of his busy schedule, he can only share with his research results online. Welcome. Can you hear us?
行吧，这个谢谢主持人呐，谢谢在场的各位
Thank you very much.
各位同行吧。这个今天我要介绍的废塑料，刚才那三个。
Today I would like to talk about preparation of eco-remediation culture substrates from waste plastics. Today, what I'm going to talk about is also part of the wastes, and it is very hard for us to process. So the waste plastics might not generate profits. This is a problem for us. And this is also a problem for the society, for the economic development. Today, I would like to talk about my thinking. So how do we form an industry? 20 years ago, the government proposes the reduction of waste plastics. The government is proposing the end of waste plastics, and the presidency also said that the well-being is an important part of the society development. So the waste plastics needs to be eliminated. And we also needed to communicate with others to reduce the amount of waste plastics. We needed to reduce the amount of residuals. Now let's have a look at this picture. There was one of our colleagues is engaged in the gas industry. So you can see that the wastes are being landfilled here, and then it's been incinerated.
So when it's sent to the factory, it's still stockpiled. It's piled there because there's not enough room for landfilling. If you go to other countries, in international conference, some say they will have a high price for waste plastics, but they don't want these. What they want are plastic bottles from, say, for example, cola. They're quite clean. You just need to wash it and crush it. 1 ton of those clean plastics can be sold at 2,000 to 3,000 yuan. So companies know this very well, which is why the plastics we see can only be piled, they are not sold. Plastics are different from other stuff. HDPE, LDPE have very different characteristics. The melting point, etc., may vary a lot. Plastics are a mixture of different elements. It's very hard to separate elements from each other. How do they bond into a single product? Scientific research needs to study the characteristics. That's what theory and research should work on to provide guidance for practice. Superabsorbent resin is different from a normal resin because it can retain a lot of water. It's a hydrophilic, so it's much more expensive. If we can create superabsorbent resin from waste plastics, it will be welcomed by the market. The structure is not difficult. Then we should examine its hydrophilic characteristics. How much water can be absorbed by 1 gram? Hopefully 1 to 6 grams of water can be absorbed by 1 gram of the product. And then we can compare it with the market. Compare it with other materials such as rubber. We can separate from general waste. We can try to make the superabsorbent plastic from shopping bags, takeout boxes, and plastic foam. And we'll see there might be a difference. We cannot make it from rainwater because rainwater is not just water, but also a lot of other substances. So if we use the material for absorption of rainwater, the test should adapt. If we repeat the test for 4 times, we'll see there is not much decline in hydrophilic properties. As for its application, we'll see that it cannot be used when pH level is 3 to 10. The water absorption will be affected because the pH value will affect the structure of the product. But still, it can be used for soil treatment and pollution prevention and control. Because it will affect the structure of COH group in dissociation degree. You are not study it, but of course you know about different forms of the 3-dimensional planting substrate. Most of them are used in, say, for example, at rooftop or green space in balcony. It can also be used for indoor greening. Apartments are really expensive in Shanghai and Beijing. It's up to 10 million yuan per apartment, which is a lot. That's to say, a lot of people want the best for their apartment, and they want it to look green. They want flowers. Some plants carry good meanings. For example, getting a fortune. That is why they will need soil. They need planting substrate. They need a good nutrient. So we can target these high net worth customers. we can produce planting substrate for people with a need for indoor greening. If it's powder or a block, it might give off dirt, but we can make it into a new form of substrate to prevent dirt and fall off. The raw material is a superabsorbent resin. Then we can add surface solutions to change the surface structure. It's porous. The substrate as the end product can retain water and is much better than alternatives. It can preserve water better, so it's more suitable for rooftop greening.
搞清楚3个问题，就是废塑料纸这类技术存在哪些问题？第一，就是废旧塑料纸。
There are 3 difficulties. First, waste plastic melting strength is low. It's not enough to withstand the pressure in the process of foaming. Second, there's high crystallinity, which limits the movement of molecular chains and reduces the flexibility and water absorption of the product. Third, the waste plastic is not hydrophilic. It cannot meet the requirement of cultivation. So we need to change the surface. We use ultra-red rays to identify the surface and how much water can be absorbed. The water absorption rate can be up to 500 to 600%. Let's also comment on the function and performance. After 16 times of using the substance, there's not much change in its water absorption performance. This is the mechanism for changing the surface structure. And later we test the water absorption ability, how much water can be retained. The tests show that it's 3 to 14 times more water retaining than traditional absorbent resin. Although it's high molecule, through melting modification, blending form, grafting, it will have very high water absorption ability, and the cost is also low, which is economically viable. I won't elaborate on the technical details. The product doesn't require pre-cleaning and crushing of waste plastic. It doesn't deal with wastewater. The cost is low. The product has high strength, strong toughness, low bulk density, excellent water absorption and water retention, and has a broad market application value. The operation is simple, and that is why there is wide demand. There is a lot of demand in 3-dimensional greening and slow prepare and treatment. The end product seems blackish, but it doesn't affect its function. We might need to cut it into pieces. Some processing may be needed to cater to market demand. The mechanism may be complicated, but the cost is here. It might be more widely used in the south. It's used for slow prepare. For example, in high-speed train or high-speed railway, we might have to cross the mountain. So we have to consider whether there will be slippery slope, because these are safety hazards or the rock may fall off. That's why we need a slope solidification. We also need to green up infrastructure. So these projects is of course viable in the market. The price is around 9,000 to 13,000 yuan per metric meter, but the cost is less than 5,000. So there is a good margin. As we can see, the end product can support plant in a very similar way as soil. This is in Inner Mongolia, where there's a shortage of water, which is why the end product can yield a very good effect as it can retain water very well. This is a landscape created by the waste end product. There's camel, it's good scenery. This is a flower pillar. It looks beautiful, but we cannot use soil because soil will fall off when we water it. That's why the waste plastic end product, the substrate, is of better utility. This is the way to Beijing Winter Olympics. 3 years before the Winter Olympics, from Beijing to Zhangjiakou to Chongli, there are highways, but it was required that there should be green space along the freeway. In Beijing and around Zhangjiakou, there are mines, a lot of mines, be it gold, silver, iron, zinc, or copper. The quality may be just so-so, but still there's a profit margin, so there are a lot of mines there, which is why we see all these bold mountains. But Beijing government required them to be greened up before the Winter Olympics. That's where we could use the substrate made from waste plastic. This is on our way to northwestern China. Along the freeway, we see these slopes. If we use soil, it might be very difficult to water over 1,000 plants on a daily basis. That's why we used the end product from waste plastic treatment.
Okay, if you are interested in this topic, you can come to Beijing and we can have a face-to-face discussion. That's all. Thank you. Thank you very much for your sharing. Actually, the remediation of the substrate or from the waste plastics is very important. I was the host of the first half of the morning session, so I would like to invite Liu Jianguo from Tsinghua University to continue hosting that session. I will not introduce him. Now let's welcome Liu Jianguo.
好，大家中间也没有安排休息啊，我们就进入到我们今天我们这个会场我们的。
I would like to move on to the second part of this session because we have just limited the time, exceeded the limit of the time. We have already exceeded the time limit, but according to the plan, we have 4 speakers. First of all, The first speaker is also my colleague, Professor Wen Zongguo from School of Environment, Tsinghua University. He is the director of the ecological civilization researchers and in the solid waste management and in the simulation of carbon emission and in the Internet of Things. He has abundant research results, and he was also selected as part of the talent program. Now let's welcome Wen Zongguo. His topic is urban multi-source solid waste park based on collaborative disposal project and carbon reduction and pollution reduction analysis. Now let's give him a warm welcome. So can you see my screen?
没问题。好嘞，谢谢建国刚才的介绍，非常高兴能够在咱们第18届的这个固废管理技术国际研讨会上来分享。
Thank you very much. I'm very sorry that because of my busy schedule, I cannot come here.
我今天的这个分享呢，主要从3个部分。
Today, I'm going to share with you from 3 aspects. The first one is our small and medium cities. They are faced with waste disposal challenges. The second one is I would like to talk about basic theories and technical support for our solid waste park treatment. And the third one is about Zhangjiagang example. Actually, we needed to reduce the carbon emission in our multi-source waste management. In recent years, our greenhouse gas emissions has increased, especially through the incineration. Generally speaking, if we compare with other countries,
so
I believe that there are some problems during our biological disposal and heat chemical disposal and landfill disposal. We will generate high carbon substitutes, high carbon energy. So there are prominent problems, like what this picture showed us, because there are multiple kinds of solid wastes. During our incineration and landfill and aerobic and other projects, there are many types of urban solid waste and many subjects of incineration, landfill, and aerobic and other projects with the scattered layout and low resource utilization efficiency. Due to lack of effective coordination, the metabolism of energy, water, and slag among facilities is easy to form during the secondary pollution, and it will lead to pollution. Of course, there are also other prominent problems, and how to solve this resource utilization low efficiency issue. For this problem, I believe that we needed to simultaneously solve the solid waste management problems. Solid waste management greenhouse gas emission reduction is mainly due to energy and material recycling. Collaborative carbon reduction mechanism has the potential not only limited to the solid waste treatment process and technical level, but also related to the whole life cycle of the metabolite analysis and optimization. We not only needed to pay attention to the disposal process, we also needed to consider multi-department coordination and their metabolism, and also optimize this whole process. So according to these problems, we have proposed a few solutions. We needed to coordinate this whole process. So as we can see, the resource metabolism, it can generate a lot of wastes, and we classify them. And for example, recyclable part and municipal sludge, kitchen waste, household waste, and then they will move on to 3 parts: the recyclables, the combustible components, and biodegradable fractions. And some of the sludges might be incinerated, and we might have some smoke or exhaust gas. These all needs to be treated. And when we process all these wastes, we might face natural constraints, policy constraints, and technical constraints. Different wastes might generate different pollution, and it will also impact the efficiency, including the resource, energy, and other efficiencies, and also it relates to the economic costs and environmental impacts. So our overall solution is also related to the city's policies support and technology support, and to choose the best technology and dispose these wastes. And we also need to optimize our goals.
那我们一直在强调垃圾分类，为什么又在延期化的后面进行协同处置？那么这个曾经有很多专家提过，但是
some of the experts also proposed this problem. For example, in China, our household wastes are divided into different categories. And we also have proposed different solutions. For example, from the top-level design, they have such a overall thinking, which is the household waste classification system implementation plan. On that basis, we have different kinds of policies to support waste classification. So we cannot equalize the classification of solid waste and sorting and collaborative disposal. And according to our solutions, a lot of elements can be coordinated, can be disposed. And how do we improve our life and household waste treatment? And we also hold on to this concept. Apart from the policies that we talked about, there are also various policies that support their waste classification. As you can see, we have various policies, and we have put all these concepts and thinking into the government policies. Why is it feasible from the engineering perspective? According to our design of the system, now let's have a look at the front end. From these characteristics, as you can see, first of all, their characteristics are very similar. Their carbon and nitrogen ratio varies according to the different situation, and it might have a negative impact. So we needed to solve all these problems. As you can see, the dried sludge and kitchen marsh slag has a lower calorific value, and also medical waste, general industrial solid waste, heat value is higher. there are also other problems like too fast degradation rate for the anaerobic digestion. A lot of VAs are produced and anaerobic links are easy to over-acidify. So I believe that we can have a coordinated multiple ways of processing these wastes. And apart from it, we also need to the whole process. We need to consider the front-end classification, the back-end disposal, technology matching, including its science and technology traits. So that's why we needed to systematically consider the front-end disposal and back-end classification. So this kind of design is also very important. Now, let's also look at the back end. For the different technological paths, there are different secondary pollutants.
那么其实上看到这些设施啊，它不是一个叫相互取代的，或者说对立的一个关系，它反而是一个耦合。
And actually, they integrate with each other. They share the resources.
因此呢，这个系统处置呢，我们看到按照过去我们团队的研究啊。
And this kind of coordinated disposal on the right-hand side, you can see there is a picture.
那么总体上来讲，它的环境影响是远低那单独进行样消化的这样的一个技术。
And this is also another technology, for example, anaerobic digestion. And we also carried out analysis of all these methods.
很好的这样的一个系统处置的机制。那我们以常见的这些这个城市的废弃物主要是生物质废物的。 当然还考虑了一些现在常见的，比如说
And we also consider all those residues and resource products. And it also relates to 3 kinds of dimensions. And we also needed to find the commonalities of all these waste disposal methods. So we take a treatment objects as an example. It involves 13 residues of 3 types of phase states and 9 kinds of resource products and 16 synergistic symbiosis points.
我们展示在这张图上，那大家可以看到路沿的这个固体废弃物的话，是这样的黑颜色的箭头。
And I believe that for the solid waste treatment, it can generate residues. And we also have the possibility of coordinated disposal.
So we need a coordination between different processes. We need to deal with the biogas and the stench. There's also vapor, electricity as the energy. That's why we can create synergy between solid waste, liquid, and energy to form a systematic solution. This is a wastewater from multiple sources.
修地浓度是非常高，运行负荷也很大。如果单独处置，其实成本是比较高的包括这个垃圾的。
Biogas produced from kitchen waste may have good potential to produce biomass. However, the elements of salt, COD, ammonium, and nitrogen may vary for the solution, for leaching solution from incinerated waste and from landfill waste. That's to say the facility need to take into account the difference of raw material. In particular, there might be condensed miscellaneous salt, where the composition is complex and utilization of resources difficult. But of course, if we can't deal with it, we can landfill. There's combustible and decomposable components that will be trickled into coordinated incineration or joint anaerobic processing. And later there will be different residues that are processed in voluntary or that will be processed in a stable to stabilize. Biogas is produced that will later be used as an energy source. We can also produce biogas and increase the rate of biogas production. This way, we'll have more energy and make the energy recycling more efficient. In the previous design, the stench can be coordinated so that the disposal will be in synergy with incineration. And in the control methods, we can see that for methane and nitro dioxide, there's good disposal to link them together. We need to stabilize the operation of a waste disposal park. First is to increase efficiency of resource conversion. Second, to reduce carbon emission and pollution. That's to say there's synergy, which means we can make sure that there is coordination between different indices. But of course, we need to take into account whether identification and sorting is accurate enough. What's the standard for collecting the garbage? All of these need to factor into planning of the landscape and layout. That's a theoretical framework. We'll need enough knowledge in order to come up with the right techniques and technology. In order to deal with concentrated organic wastewater, we need preparation and treatment of leachate and biogas slurry and adjust carbon and nitrogen to reduce carbon sources. We can also use biogas to generate electricity to increase the energy efficiency. Let me give you a simple example. We can treat kitchen waste and generate electricity from incineration. This way, there will be biogas that will be used for electricity. But if we compare this with the layout of the industrial park, we'll see how efficiency can be improved by better layout to enable coordination between different facilities. In all the 5 scenarios, a layout can drive up energy efficiency. Coordinated incineration is at the core. We need to consider the entire process. There might be a painting gun that comes in 3 layers in denitration. Going down, there is the boiler export, the local water war, and the fuel gas recirculation device. The boil export CMS might be insignificant, it's just at the end, but it plays a role in improving incineration efficiency. This is an assessment table. We look at both product value gain and energy value gain. The results are are satisfactory. This is the roadmap again. Waste liquid should go in biogas and electricity production, and trench can be collected and centralized. With analysis, we'll see the cost of operation and investment declined, and the effects are good. We talked about technology, synergy, For example, in coordinated incineration, we need to take into account waste ratio, waste components, scale, and even the climate factors, meteorological factors. Our team used both micro operating parameters and primary air volume to use neural network in order to build a predictive model. This way, we have come up with machine learning algorithms on coordinated anaerobic production. Still, we need to improve the variables. Given that facilities work together, there's a network of production and loss between different facilities, and the metabolism of a network will also affect the entire industrial park. That's why we should monitor and assess the variables to better optimize facilities in the park. We might use non-linear machine learning algorithms to improve biogas production efficiency from pre-treatment, improving anaerobic gas tank structure, and facilitate pre-treatment. This way, there will be better pre-treatment and gas discharge. And we may also have an extensive index to assess the stability of the system and its coordination effect. This is used to assess whether the park has different facilities work in coordination. This is used for assessment and monitoring. At the same time, when facilities are running, the efficiency may vary in different quarters. So we have to take into account temperature and other weather factors. In this way, the waste disposal park will see good operation efficiency. The same data can be used for risk warning. We talk about coordination factor, which is S. We also mentioned stability of the network, which is NS. We need optimization strategies, but still it's quite complicated because we just started. And let's look at two major parts. First is in the core, the metabolism should be stable. It's about biogas generation as well as residue from incineration furnace. Efficiency is also decided by components and scale of input. So when we conduct a coordination, we need to think of all the factors and fine-tune them. This is a software. We link different factors together and take them in a comprehensive manner. We need to better analyze them, have risk control and warning, and there should be intelligent optimization control to stabilize the situation so that the entire park is in smooth operation. This is used in Zhangjiagang. Zhangjiagang is an important town in eastern China with strong economy and large population. There are 6 types of waste products to be processed here. There's around 20 projects, but still there's not enough production or processing on organic waste. The incineration proportion of flammable solid waste is still low. Landfill facilities are under great strain and there's not enough separation rate from kitchen waste. We conducted a reorganization in 2018. These centers are decarbonization centers. There's a combustible incineration center and an organic subcenter. There's another landfill center and energy generation center. But we need to coordinate them to have a stable symbiotic system. In the collection of waste, we have a sorting, collection, transportation system, and we will be having a biomass symbiosis with incineration. There's also landfill for things that are left over. In facilities dealing with different forms of waste, there should be synergy. The disposal takes into account specific types of substance. There's kitchen waste and other types, and they are processed in different pipelines. There's good effect. Fly ash is landfilled partially. Some wastewater is still discharged with 920,000 tons of garbage in the park, processing the park every year. 86.6% of them are utilized. We're still improving, and the system is applied in other parts of China. For example, in Chengdu, a park using our system has won a first prize in waste disposal project in Sichuan province. And today, our theme is to, based on the Zhangjiagang product, further increase the efficiency of the project to reduce carbon emission, to reduce pollution, so that it's not only about resource conversion, but decarbonization. In the third update, we intend to introduce recyclable energy as well as devising and generating renewables. We also want garbage collection and transportation vehicles to be part of the park. Can we have carbon neutrality? There's preliminary research, but we should devise technology to reach carbon neutrality. In urbanization, how can we use similar strategies to achieve carbon neutrality? Well, we've done some research. That marks the end of my report. Thank you. Thank you for the report. We didn't have much time, but we learned a lot. Many parts of the report echoed with previous presentations, and it's also relevant to the following reports.
Next, I would like to invite University of Chinese Academy of Sciences, National Environmental Protection Engineering Technology Center for Mercury Pollution Prevention. So I've known Professor Chen Yang for a very long time. We've been involved in the in this industry for a very long time. So Professor Yang, he is very well known in this industry, in our solid waste treatment. He also has a lot of research results, and he has also been selected in a lot of expert programs. Now let's welcome Chen Yang to talk about research on pretreatment of domestic waste fly ash and building material utilization technology. As you can see, the key words of my topic is fly ash. Fly ash comes from the household waste, and the core is incineration. So today I would like to talk about a few things. First of all, What is fly ash? Where does it come from? And what kind of technology should we use? And what is the best method to solve all these problems? So where does the fly ash come from? It actually comes from our household facilities. And for example, it also has a lot of different kinds of elements. It also imposes hazards to our environment, like dioxins, heavy metals, and you are all very familiar with it. And for the disposal technologies, actually, we also needed to further reduce the landfill and reduce the hazards. And when we generate our wastes, actually, we have the elimination method of landfills. As you can see from this picture, there is an incineration plant. The fly ash is restored. And this is also another way of disposing the waste, and it also imposes hazards to our environment. And you can see our rules and regulations about the fly ash treatment. I also would like to save time because so I will not talk about the details. We have the rules and regulations and policies related to the fly ash. Various departments and governments also attach great importance to the fly ash situation. So what is the main method for us to treat the fly ash? For example, we can use incineration. And we also have various goals, rules and regulations related to the fly ash treatment. And we also like standards and guarantee for disposing our fly ash. And there are also main technologies in this regard. I also would like to give you an introduction about our treatment technologies. And the landfill is the main measure. There are also other measures. And about the fly ash treatment, the core thing is that we need to once all these fly ash is fixated, it's stabilized, it will be sent to other plants. And the most commonly used technique for fly ash disposal include curing, stabilization, wash plus cement clean disposal. We needed to meet the landfill requirements, and there are also curing and stabilizing technologies. The first one is cement curing. Cement curing, that means the material is the cement, set is at curing agent fly ash mixing. It also has advantages and disadvantages. The advantages is that it's difficult to reach a stable state after disposal of heavy metals, which also needs to be supplemented by the corresponding stabilizer, and there is a great risk. I actually participated in a lot of technology seminars. As we can see, we use this stabilization agents. After mixing PCSB with solidified material particles, the physical and chemical action of PCSB form a film and a chain. There are two kinds of structure. And we also have other curing and stabilizing technology, like the combination of cement and pharmaceuticals. And how do we integrate them with each other? This is a key. And there are also companies that is doing the collaborative disposal of cement clean. there are also problems that needs to be solved. For example, the salt content is relatively high, amounting to about 30%. And we might also think about other problems. For example, the fly ash might melt when it encounters the water. There are also other problems like the heavy metals content. And the cement production has a high requirement on the feed composition. And we also have other special technologies like the special technology for the preparation of high temperature sintered ceramics from fly ash. And there are also other similar facilities that can dispose the fly ash. There is a problem of how to control the harmless treatment of the flue gas. And the fly ash needs to be treated to solve the problem of chlorine salts, mercury, and other heavy materials. And there are also other ways to solve this problem. For example, the collaborative technology of preparation for high temperature sintered ceramide from fly ash. We can also add sulfur and iron, slag, paper slag, and other auxiliary raw materials. Then after drying into balls, we can preheat and expand and cool it and form a unique structure with honeycomb micropores inside, outside with animal dense shell. Its main production equipment is very clean. And we can also use the fly ash to pre-treat it and form solidified productions. And we also need to solve the fly ash problem. When the fly ash is made to the ceramide aggregate, we need to solve a few problems. For example, and there are a lot of similarities. The first one is temperature. The second one is time. And it will make the ceramide production very stable. And we can also treat plasma gasification, melting treatment. I also have a lot of projects related to this. And about the fly ash, they adopted a feeding system, a gasifier, a secondary combustion chamber, a residual moisture scrubber, and other parts, hot boiler, electrostatic precipitator, dry action tower, crossback precipitator. I also participated in this process. And there are also other technologies. I mentioned all these technologies. We also have other technologies like like fly ash as an alternative raw material. We can also use it to build an unfired brick, cement mixture, concrete mixture, and so on. The users will be rest assured when they operate all these products. This is another project from us. We can realize the production of sintering bricks from fly ash, the recycling and reduction. And we can also remove dioxins. And the fly ash is one of the ways to build sintering bricks. And we can also move on to other technologies. Pre-treatment of fly ash is very important. As we know, 70% of the fly ash is insoluble matter and 30% is soluble. And it also contains heavy metals. This is key. we drew this picture. We've been exploring this for a very long time. So coming back to this whole process, especially the fly ash development. And after the pre-treatment, whatever the final product is, we need to form a basis for the pre-treatment of fly ash. We can add a few additives. The wash desalting, can it be an end-to-end water desalting? That's the key. And what are the key pollutants, as you can see? So I also pay much attention to the PB, and I am at the CDCR. And you can see the cadmium is the cadmium, the GB, according to GB standard, it's 1. So that's why we need to eliminate mercury in this process. And we've been involved in this project for a very long time. We've been doing this pre-treatment. The mercury content is about 5 to 6 milligrams. Then we needed to reduce it to 0.01 milligrams per cubic meter. So our thinking is that we can use the efficient processing, targeted absorption, high efficiency absorption, in situ regeneration. So our technology, all the mercury can oxidize, and the dioxin bond is breaked, and we can purify the plasma chemical reaction. Will not be easy to cause secondary pollution. And also this material is also renewable. It can also be absorbed. So centering around this technology, we thought about how to connect all these parts. And this is our pre-treatment. So from the path perspective, we need to find the best technology.
The key of pre-treatment is the salt and the mercury. And we worked with local and national projects to deal with fly ash. We also have patents on fly ash. So in total, how do we utilize construction materials to improve the pre-treatment of fly ash? Technology is developing, but we have to make sure it's safe and efficient, economically viable, and management should produce a socio-economic benefit. Well, about fly ash, our team and other groups are working on fly ash, but we'll need a good team, patent, standard, and particles. The technology is not high-tech. It's not rocket science, but we need the entire industry to work together to promote the research and this industry. Of course, it's shortcoming, but we still have a lot of potential. Thank you. I would like to thank Professor Chen Yang for the presentation. Of course, fly ash is a key. We have to deal with dioxin, heavy metal, especially mercury, which is why it's difficult to convert fly ash into resource, which is what we will work on. The next presenter is Professor Guohua from Huaqiao University. He works on the control of pollution in atmosphere and the planning of waste disposal industrial parks. His topic is on carbon capture and pollution management of industrial parks. He has achieved great results. Let's give the floor to Professor Guohua to share about high efficiency and low energy carbon capture technology for carbon neutrality. Good morning. I would like to thank the organizing committee for the invitation. Today, my topic is carbon capture technology with high energy efficiency to reach carbon neutrality. The international society is paying great attention to climate change and its environmental problems. In 2021, IPCC released a report on climate change. That means climate change is a non-conventional national security concern. In COP27, a comprehensive climate agreement was reached. One of the major results was to implement the Paris Agreement and control the rise of global temperature within 1.5 Celsius degrees. Let's look at the relation between carbon emission and climate change. As we can see, since the first industrial revolution, there's a great surge in fossil fuel, and there's more carbon dioxide emission. As we can see in the atmosphere, with more carbon dioxide, there will be temperature rise. That's to say, to curb climate change as the key in controlling GHG, especially carbon dioxide. As we know, in 2020, China first proposed the dual carbon goal, which was a solemn promise China made to the world. And later in important Chinese and international conferences, President Xi alluded to the dual carbon goal again. And in the 20th Party Congress report, there was the announcement of actively and steadily promote carbon neutrality and carbon peak, showing the resolution and confidence of China to deal with climate change. China is facing solemn challenge. First, China releases a large amount of carbon. In 2005, China took over the US to be the biggest emitter. And in 2020, China emitted over 11.4 billion tons to be twice of the US and 3 times that of the EU. On the other hand, China has a short time window between carbon peak and neutrality. Currently, 93.8% of fossil fuel is still from coal. In 2021, fossil fuel take up 82% of primary energy consumption over the globe. That amount in China is around 83%. In Western countries, most fossil fuel come from oil and gas, but in China, mostly from coal. And it's estimated that coal power fired plant is the biggest source of carbon emission in China. This is a breakdown of carbon emission by industry. That's to say, in order to reach carbon neutrality, we need to accelerate an energy system that is clean, low carbon, safe, and efficient. And we also need a green, low carbon, and recyclable development system for economy. That's to say, we need to lower per capita consumption and reduce carbon intensity. we need to increase the carbon quota and decrease carbon. We need to increase carbon capture. That's to say, we'll need carbon capture and deposit. Next, I'll move on to talk about carbon capture and utilization. We call it CCUS, which means to collect carbon dioxide, and then we store it or utilize it to prevent its emission. We have conventional CCUS, which focuses on industrial carbon emission. There's also BECCS focusing on biomass utilization, and DACCS, direct carbon capture from air. CCUS is a key technology that can reduce carbon emission and also reduce the concentration of carbon dioxide. There are around 30 CCUS commercial facilities around the world that captures around 40 million tons of carbon dioxide per year, twice the level of 2010. As of 2022, there are 163 CCUS projects that are in operation or construction, mostly in the US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. In China, around 100 projects are online or under construction. They can capture around 4 million tons per year, but mostly they're of a small scale or they're driven by oil. There's lack of an comprehensive industrial model, and we're still planning on a 5 million ton project. But what is CCUS? What does it mean for carbon neutrality? Well, in 2021 CCUS report, there is a clear proposition, because even if we can reach carbon neutrality, fossil fuel will still be about 15% of the energy. That's to say, CCUS is the only choice to decarbonize fossil fuel. And for the electricity system, non-fossil electricity will take up over 90%. So we have to use CCUS to make sure we have flexibility about using coal. Steel industry finds it difficult to decarbonize because 5 to 35% of carbon dioxide cannot be eliminated, and that amount for concrete industry is 40%, which is why these industries need CCUS to decarbonize. For non-carbon dioxide and some industrial carbon dioxide sources, there will still be hundreds of millions of tons of emission by 2060, which is why CCUS is an important technological guarantee for China's carbon-free future. The most important section in CCUS is carbon capture. Carbon capture can happen before combustion, during combustion, and after it. That's to say, there is wide application. Currently, carbon capture after combustion have 3 major methods: chemical absorption, separation, and membrane separation. Chemical absorption has a fast absorption rate, good selectivity, and high adaptability. And for high-performance chemical absorbent, there's a high load, high reaction rate, low energy consumption, and there's high stability. The first generation of absorption solvent has low absorption load, high renewable energy consumption, easy oxidization. We also have the second and third generation absorbent, but most commercial absorbent is the first generation based on anom. the cost is around $400 to $500 per kilowatt, and operation cost is $40 to $60 per ton of carbon dioxide. If we use the new generation of CCUS, the energy cost will be lower by 50%, and there will be a massive application by 2030. The second section is to utilize the carbon dioxide. We can use it. There are 3 types of use that can happen with geological means, chemical engineering, and biological utilization. Some carbon dioxide cannot be used, it should be stored. Currently, carbon storage mostly happen in saltwater sequestration and depleted oil reservoir sequestration. The key problem is to ensure the safety of storage and prevent leakage. This is the focus of my team. We talk about the shortage of MEA absorption solvent. There's high energy consumption, which is 3.6 to 4 GJ per ton of carbon dioxide, and energy consumption may take up 60 to 80% of the total energy generated. We need the temperature to reach over 120 Celsius degrees for desorption to happen. And also there's erosion. That means the absorption solution should have a high concentration of water, and water should be heated and evaporated, which consumes a lot of energy. So we have a high load absorption system, non-water, lean water absorbent, and phase change absorption system added with complemented by an industrial optimization in method. We will have a high load absorption system to reduce the number of desorption cycles and the size of absorption and desorption tower to reduce energy consumption cost. Based on mechanism of carbon dioxide absorption, we can use amino groups as part of the solvent so that the ionic liquid will improve carbon dioxide absorption load. We have devised multiple types of iron liquid based on any amino heterocyclical double functional ionic liquid. Here's an example to show what our estimate is and what's the actual value. There's a similarity that means it's efficient in filtering out what's an applicable absorption solvent. Absorption solvent is of crucial importance, so we have also studied its erosion rate. It is found that structural activity relationship of carbon dioxide captured by functional ionic liquid is clarified, and the design of and construction of high-load absorbent aided by quantum chemistry calculation can be used to develop new absorbent rapidly and efficiently.
And through this method, we can reduce we will not impact its erosion process. And we also established the construction and water per water absorbent technology. The specific heat capacity of organic solvent is much lower than that of water. The use of organic solvent to replace part of all the water greatly reduces the heat taken away by the solvent evaporation, thus reducing the energy consumption of the absorption. And it will also prevent the formation of insoluble substances. We can prevent the formation of insoluble substances by introducing regulators involved in the deprotonation process. And we also have adopted the non-water, lean water carbon capture technology, the alcohol lemon regulation strategy by introducing a steric hindrance aiming to inhibit the formation of intermolecular hydrogen bond network. We can regulate the morphology of the product. And we can also use the organic solubilization technology by introducing organic co-solvent to improve the solubility of the product in the solvent so as to reduce the viscosity. And we also have established this low-energy liquid phase carbon capture technology. What are the principles of phase change absorption technology? The solution of phase change absorption system is homogeneous before absorption and divided into phases after absorption. CO2 is enriched in one phase, and only the rich phase needs to be regenerated. The generated solution mixes with another phase and returns to the homogeneous solution. And we also found out that after we concentrate the CO2, it will be very hard for us to have a low viscosity, and it's difficult to regenerate. And there is also great energy saving potential. And what are the mechanism analysis? Because the high viscosity of the product, it leads to strong hydrogen bonding. So because of all these difficulties, we used this low energy liquid phase carbon capture technology. The reaction and phase transition mechanism of CO2 trapping by absorbent were revealed. The structural activity relationship and of liquid variable absorbent was also clarified. The activation strategy of steric hindrance amine and organic alcohol were also proposed. We also proposed, based on the phase transition mechanism resulting on the effect, a phase transition absorption system of functional ionic liquid was proposed, which has the characteristics of a high load of functional ionic liquid and a low energy consumption of phase transition absorber and a greatly reduced energy consumption of the desorption. So I have talked about the liquid phase conversion. We also developed a solid liquid phase conversion system. And how do we ensure the viscosity? Because the viscosity increases as hydrogen bond increases. And the most important thing for us is that we needed to have soluble parameters. It affects solid formation. We also need to have cell parameters. It affects product morphology. By screening the solvent, the solid product with controllable shape was obtained. The rich liquid was white crystal powder, which was easy to separate and regenerate. And for us, we also needed to make a phase transition controllable. We adjusted the priority of the reaction between the absorption components and CO2 and the intensity of the interaction between the molecules of the absorption products, as well as the parameters of product viscosity, solubility, lattice energy, etc. We constructed a solid liquid phase change absorbent controllable by the product morphology and phase transition node, so as to avoid the problems of the product viscosity and the difficult separation and the mass transfer of the initial reaction phase transition. And we also optimized our technology. We developed a multi-stage phase separation carbon capture process. Based on the process simulation and the pilot test, the multi-stage phase separation carbon capture process was constructed to obtain the best operating parameters. During the absorption process, we needed to add another facility to realize this. And we also constructed enhanced absorption, multi-stage phase separation, enhanced absorption, carbon capture process route. The performance indexes and operating parameters of the absorbers were obtained through the pilot test, and the process package of the carbon capture system was also formed. We cooperated with a Fujian company to develop our carbon capture centralized test platform, and the capture efficiency is 297%, and the energy consumption of absorbent regeneration is about 2.3 GJ per ton of CO2. And what about its application scenario? We found out that with organic amine phase transition system, energy consumption can be reduced by 50%. Load is equivalent. Solid liquid system, if we adopt this system, energy consumption reduced by 55%. And the less water pore system, the energy consumption reduced by 60%. If we adopt ionic liquid phase change system, the energy consumption reduced by 60%, load increased 3 to 5 times. The last is summary and vision. How do we develop low energy carbon capture is our future direction. So we also need to construct phase change absorption, coupled absorption control technology, improve the desorption rate, reduce the desorption temperature and renewable energy consumption, reduce the cost of carbon capture. We also need to collaborate with each other and improve the system stability, improve the stability of the absorber, strengthen the qualitative CCUS technology, reduce the absorption application, and also extend the life cycle of the system and enhance application and promotion. And we should also gradually expand the CCUS to investment, steel, coking, and other lives. That's all. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Qin Guohua. That was a very professional sharing, like what I have said. In the future, our waste deceleration also needs our further treatment. Next, I would like to invite a speaker who has a similar research direction like Qin Guohua, Zhejiang University of Technology, Professor Zhang Shihan. He is going to share with us the design and mechanism of new CO2 absorption materials. Welcome. Thank you very much for your introduction. I will complete my introduction within 10 minutes. Thank you very much for your introduction and for the invitation. We're going to mainly talk about 3 aspects. Professor Jing also talked about it. Under the background of peak, carbon peak and carbon neutrality, there are various requirements. I have already updated the slides yesterday. For us, we also conducted research about the waste incineration. CO2 from the incineration increased year by year. China emits about 12.5 billion tons of greenhouse gas annually. And actually, a larger part of them comes from the biomass. It will offset the CO2 emission from the steel-making industry. We also researched the various status quo of waste incineration. In the future, it also has a reduction requirement. We not only need to rely on only one technology. So what are our CO2 reduction paths? We need to focus on the CCUS capture, utilization, and storage. What is the current stage of the CCUS? It can be divided into 3 aspects, like carbon trapping, utilization, and storage. For the first part is carbon capture. So different sources of the CO2. I also investigated the characteristics of the gas emitted from our normal waste. It's very similar to that of the coal-fired power plants, but the impurities are actually different. And in the future, if we want to migrate the technology from other parts, we need to consider the minor impurities. For the carbon capture technology, we are also carrying out research in the combustion carbon capture technology, like MEA absorption technology. For a lot of facilities, they have not retired. Once they retire, we need to replace it with new technology, new facilities. So for the MEA, this is a relatively mature technology. The cost mainly comes from its energy consumption. So we did a lot of things. We also published papers, and we also won the prizes. So today I also would like to talk about our absorption technology. Absorption technology has its own advantages. Why does it have a higher energy consumption? Because the water also comes out during this process. If we deduct this kind of heat, the absorption technology has its own advantages. We also need to select different kinds of absorptions, like mid-level temperature, high-level temperature, low-level temperature. So if you are very familiar with CO2 absorption technology, low CO2 absorption capacity and poor selectivity are the bottleneck problems that needs to be solved by absorption method. And there are different kinds of absorption materials. We selected amine functionalized materials. And we hope that we can increase its absorption contents. So what are the reasons behind the amine functionalized absorption materials? The theoretical amino group utilization rate is 50%, while the current reported amino group utilization is about 30%, 10 to 30%. Why? We also researched the amine functionalized absorption materials. The two-layer model theory suggests that an amino group with only exposed layer can absorb CO2. There are different layers. The exposed layer can have the capacity to absorb the CO2. So how to improve this kind of a scattered effect from the layers is our focus. So our research and idea is how to highly disperse, improve the absorption performance. The amino molecular scatter site can be improved. So now I would like to give you a brief idea about our research result. So we also have a morph material.
And the analysis yields interesting results. In fact, there is this physical attraction. We analyzed the carbon dioxide adsorption site. The physical absorption process of the product was confirmed. The chemist absorption is around 160.8 ppm and physio absorption is 124.3 ppm. Most of the procedures fall into the physical realm. We use a DGA on the surface, and we found that the graphene aerogel yield stable result on the surface. That is to say, when we adjust the defect density on the surface of graphite DGA, we can achieve controllable high dispersion to help absorption achieve an ideal capacity. We also examined the absorption performance of carbon dioxide. It's rather stable after 100 times of carbon dioxide uptake because that means it can be used on direct air capture, the direct carbon capture from air. Traditional literature yield efficiency rate of organic ammonium at 30%, but our material is at 90%, so the utilization rate of organic ammonium is much better with our material. And also, we can achieve 90% in a critical boundary, much better than the traditional 50%. Traditionally, the ionic material is around 50%, but our material is at 90%, probably because there is a strong transfer effect, so that the absorption point at the surface can turn around the polarity of the ion to improve the efficiency of utilization. Previously, when carbon dioxide reacts with ammonium, we discovered that there are two steps. The absorption and deprontation can be merged into one step. We also analyzed the electrolyte analysis to examine whether it's because we have absorbed the ion that there was the difference in efficiency. We also tested for mechanical capacity after 10,000 times of physical tests. It's still durable. And we also studied graphene for its thermal desorption property. And we discovered that it's a possible choice because the energy consumption is lower than the traditional method. We also tested on waterproof capacity. That concludes my report. Thank you for listening. I'd like to thank Professor Zhang for rushing and help us have lunch on time. That marks the conclusion of the morning session. We've concluded 8 presentations. We learned a lot. Many researches can deal with practical issues. Some of them aim at solving future development bottlenecks. They aim at reaching carbon peak and neutrality. Carbon capture is a direction for the future. This is of great relevance to waste disposal and resource utilization. They are future-facing. We have made in-depth exchanges. We do not have time for Q&A. It's a pity, but presentations have been inspiring. And that concludes the morning session. Please help yourself with your lunches. Thank you and have a good time.
Thank you.